Kingwood Church. We are so happy
Yes,
to be
we are.
with you this morning. Happy Sunday and maybe it's happy church day for you and it's a Monday. Happy Tuesday, happy Wednesday. We're just glad that you are here to watch service with us this morning and to
Right.
worship with us. My name is Pastor Corey.
Right, and I'm Pastor Jason, and I'm glad you mentioned that because so many people, we have people that share our services, and after they share our services throughout the week, so many people jump on, and we see them commenting, and so you may be watching this live right now, but you also might be watching this, like you said, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday or whatever day it is. You might be at home today or you might be at work, but one thing we do ask you to do is to share our services. We found that when you share our services, people join us, and so do that. Right now, if you're on Facebook, you can just click the share button. Or if you're on YouTube or our website, you can just cut and paste and text it to a friend or maybe direct message them this morning and ask them to come to church with you.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to do.
It is.
Pastor Jason, we have, inviting people has always been a big deal for us as Kingwood Church. You know, most people are more likely to come to church if they are invited by somebody that they know.
Yep.
And now it's even easier to invite. So go ahead and hit that share button and let your friends know that they can join you for church right now.
Yep.
And if you're new here, we want to say welcome. Thanks for checking us out and coming and watching service with us. Maybe you've watched it several times and you thought, wow, I really like this church. I really like what they are about and I want to get more involved or I want to get connected. All you have to do is just click that new here that you'll see dropping in the comments here in a few minutes. There will be a little link and you can fill that out and we'll reach back out to you and we'll let you know what all is going on at Kingwood because we have so many great things happening at Kingwood. We have a saying around here that it is our goal to be a movement of hope in Shelby County and beyond.
That's right. And one of the ways that you can be a movement of hope this Easter is by going to our church website after service today, kingwoodchurch.com. If you'll click on Easter, there are some downloadable banners that we've designed specifically for you. If you'll download those, you can share them on Facebook.
A simple little digital invite card.
Right. So you can you can share them on Facebook, Instagram, whatever platform that you use for your social media. Download those and invite someone to our Easter service.
Yeah.
Because Easter, we're having two services.
That's right, two.
One of our times is at 9 a.m. and then our other time is at 10:30. So you can join us at 9 or at 10:30 on Easter Sunday and invite a friend to come watch service with you on Sunday morning.
If you come in person, it's going to be really fun.
Right.
I mean, of course, if you're online, we have fun stuff for you too. But in person, we're going to have a photo wall so you can take pictures with the family. I know everybody's dressed up nice most of the time on Easter. So you can take pictures with your family if you come in person. But if you're online, you can also take pics of your family.
That's right. Not all of you can come in person because you may live out of state or out of country. But if you are in the Birmingham metro area, please join us on Easter Sunday in person. It's going to be a lot of fun, whether you're online or in person.
Another way that you can invite is by our Facebook event. You can find that on our Facebook page, on Kingwood Church Facebook page. And you can click on it, and there's an easy button that says invite. And you can just go down your list, and you can invite everybody you want to on Facebook. It's super easy. And we know that people are looking for somewhere. People are more open to coming to church and to visiting churches and to being open to hearing about Jesus on Easter Sunday. People are curious, and we encourage you to do that. Also, for our regular people, we want to remind you about our way to give. If you want to support the ministry here at Kingwood and you love what you see going on, you could give by going to kingwoodchurch.com and simply hitting the give button. Or you can text Kingwood to 77977.
Yeah, it's just a super easy way to give. So thank you so much for all of your giving that you've done in the past. It really helps us do the ministry that God has called us and ask you to partner with here at Kingwood Church because we are a movement of hope. And one of the ways that we become that is by your partnership in giving. So thank you so much for doing that and helping Kingwood Church be that movement of hope. And then finally today, if you have a prayer request, whether you have it right now, you can just drop that in the comment section during worship or anytime during the service. We have a prayer team that's specifically designated for our online.
Yes. They're right now waiting.
Right.
I know that they are faithful to be there. Prayer team, we just want to say thank you for all that you do. If you are on the prayer team at Kingwood Church, would you just give a shout out really quick in the comments and let people know that you are there, remind them that you want to pray for them. And also, we want to remind you that we will be right back in here to meet with you after service. So don't go away and meet us in here right after we are finished. Let's worship.
Good morning. Come on, why don't you stand up to your feet this morning? Are y'all ready to worship the Lord? Come on, let's put your hands together. Lift up this place today. Yeah. Come on. I need a little help this morning. Put your hands together. Come on, if you're sitting at home with us today, I want you to stand up and worship just like you were in this place. Come on. Yeah. you excited to be here? Ooh, our God is doing it over and over and over. It doesn't matter what we're going through. It doesn't matter what you walked in those doors this morning with. Come on, it's time to shed it off. It's time to let it go, because our God's faithfulness never ends. He's the same God today as he was in those days, in those stories that we read in the Bible. When Moses parted the Red Sea, that same God is in this room today. Come on, I want you to begin to lift your hands in this room. God, just the same God. We know that you're the same God today. We know that you're in this room. We feel you in this place, God. You're the same God. Jesus, will we praise you? You're the same. I'm calling on the God of Jacob, whose love endures through generations. I know that you will keep your covenant. I'm calling on the God of Moses, the one who opened up the oceans. I need you now to do the same thing for me. For me, for me. Come on, I want you to sing it out. Oh God, my God. Oh God, my God, I need you. Oh God, my God, I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. I'm calling on the God of Mary, whose favor rests upon the lowly. I know with you all things are possible. Do you believe it? I'm calling on the God of David, who made a shepherd boy courageous. I may not face Goliath, but I've got my own giants. Oh God, my God, I need you. Come on and lift him up. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. Oh God, my God, I need you. I need you now. How I need you now. Oh rock of ages, I'm standing on your faithfulness. On your faithfulness. It's your faithfulness I'm standing on. You heard your children then. Oh, hear your children now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You answered prayers back then, and you will answer now. You are the same God. You are the same God. You were providing then. Oh, you'll provide right now. That is who you are right now. You're the same, you're the same, you're the same God. Yeah. Oh, we need you now. Oh, we need you now. Come on, lift your hands in this room. Let him know how much you need him. You freed the captives, then you're freeing hearts right. You are the same God. You are the same God. You touch the lepers, then you feel your touch right now. You are the same God. You are the same God. Forever, never changing. You're the same. Oh, you never change, God. Lord, you see this need right now. Oh, I'm calling on the Holy Spirit. Almighty river, come and fill me again. Let that be your prayer. Come and fill me again. Shout it out. Come and fill me again. He's the same God in this room today. Whatever your need, whatever you walked into this room with, he's here and he's ready to touch you. He's ready to meet you right where you are. You may come in this room this morning lost and confused, but that God is the same God that parted that Red Sea. Come on, that drove out demons, that healed lepers, that healed crippled people. Come on, that same God is here this morning to set you free, to change you right now. What a friend we have in our God. What a friend we have in Jesus. Come on, right now, every arm lifted up in this room. Because there's not a person in this room that doesn't need that God that we read about. There's not a person in this room that doesn't need him right now. Come on, begin to cry out to him with your own voice. Come on, each of you have a story this morning. Each of you have a need. Come on, right now, Jesus is in this room to have a breakthrough with you. Come on, chains can fall this morning. This altar is open anytime today. It doesn't matter. You don't have to wait to the end of service. That God is ready to meet you right here, right now. What a friend we have in him this morning. Jesus, come on, continue to worship. Continue to lift up your need. Continue to lift up your worship right now. Jesus, we lift you. So worthy, Lord. So worthy, God. You're Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. And do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. His arms he takes and shields thee. Thou wilt find a solace there. Thou wilt find a solace. Precious Jesus, Lord and friend, I give everything to shelter, saviors of this King. I give everything to you, precious Jesus, Lord and friend. I give everything to you, shelter, saviors. I give everything, I give everything to you. Jesus, we give everything to you this morning. Everything to you. This theme that we've had this morning, that God, you can do anything. And you do it again and again and again. And Father, that you are that same God. And God, you are precious and a friend. So God, we lift you up. God, we continue to worship you as we continue this service this morning. And God, we feel you in this room. And we thank you that, God, that we can stand here today and we can worship you freely. God, we thank you and we praise you this morning. In Jesus' wonderful name, amen. You can be seated.
For joining us today for this worship experience. My name is JC. Whether you're here in person or if you're joining us online, we are all so happy that you're here with us today. If you're new to Kingwood or you just like to connect with us, we would love to hear from you. All you have to do is just text the word CONNECT to 205-900-3221, or you can scan the QR code found on the back of the pew in front of you. If you're joining us online, you can also click the link provided in the chat and the comments. We would love to connect with you and answer any questions that you may have. Now, if you're new and you're here in person today, we would love to get the opportunity to meet you at the end of service. Be sure to stop by at our Connect corner in the main foyer. You'll see a banner that says New to your right as you exit. There'll be a couple of friendly faces and they'll have a gift for you and they'll be so happy to meet you. Now, to all of our church family today, we would like to remind you of the opportunity to worship through our giving. One of the ways that we encourage anyone to give is by texting the word Kingwood to 77977. For those worshiping in person, you also have the option to physically give by check or by cash using our giving box in the main foyer. So whether you choose to give electronically during the service today, or if you choose to give physically on the way through our foyer after service, thank you all so much for your continued faithfulness in giving as we strive to be a movement of hope to our community and around the world.
Well, good morning. What a good day. The end of spring break, I was at the beach and I am relaxed and focused and energetic to start the week where I'll get tired again and ready for another vacation. And we had a fantastic time. My name is Jeremy. I am youth and music minister here, among other things. Pastor Jay is he is in Texas, and he and Tyler are at Southwestern University in Texas, where Tyler is finishing up all of the formal processes to get him transferred over there, where he'll be going to school in the fall. And so that's where Pastor Jay is. So you're stuck with me. So here we are. It's good to be with you this morning. Two quick announcements. The first one is, the big announcement is Easter, a couple things about Easter. And that is, there are 3 big things happening Easter weekend. So in 2 weekends, we'll have 3 big things. The first one is on Thursday night and all day Friday, we're going to have a prayer walkthrough, which I don't want to go into a ton of detail, but we're setting up the outer perimeter of the inside of the church. So those of you that don't know, there's a hallway that runs all the way around the sanctuary. So we're setting that up with the Stations of the Cross. Take about an hour, but it's a guided prayer meditation through the last day of Jesus' life. It'll be really great. I'm very excited to offer that to you. It'll be Thursday night and all day Friday. You just come and go. We'll have, it'll be guided. Just look online and you'll see, basically bring a set of headphones in your phone and you'll be guided around. So I really want to explain it so much more, but it would take forever. But it's going to be really neat. Friday night is our Good Friday service. It is both online and in person. It starts at 7 o'clock. And then Easter morning, we will celebrate the resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. 2 services, both online and in person. They are at 9 and 10:30. So that's the big deal. The second part of that is this. We are in a series called Conversations with Jesus. And so over the last several weeks and through the next several weeks, we're just looking at several conversations that Jesus had with specific groups of people. Most of them are private conversations. And our encouragement to you is, are you having conversations with your friends, with your family, with the people that you work with? Are you having conversations that invite people to the person, the character, the nature, the work of Jesus? And so I want to encourage you, whether you're inviting people online or you're inviting people here in person, but have those conversations and invite. It's going to be a fantastic weekend and 2 weekends here for Easter. So, speaking of conversations, part of the conversations that Jesus has are private. Part of them are a little bit more public. But Jesus ends up being pretty misunderstood pretty often. I think this was about 2 years ago. I use my cell phone a lot in the car, like the hands-free whole thing. I like to not pick up. You know when you're driving and you see people on the phone, or maybe you are that person that's on your phone. And I have to ask for the patience of Jesus, because I want to beat my horn and act like you're about to get in a wreck, so that like if you're on your phone, you're like, so that you would do that. I think that would be funny. But I'll see people on their phone, so I try not to be the person that's on their phone. And so I always talk to the Google. I know I'm one of the rare people in the room. How many of you are Android people in the room? Are there just a few of us? All right, so like I thought, like 5 to 10% of us. I just want to say this. Hey Siri, power off. I'm just going to see if that was going to work. I'm just curious if that works for anybody, because I am about to tell you what I normally do. So I'm driving down the road, and I will say when I want to call somebody, I will say, hey Google. That's going to get a few of you. Sorry about that. But I think it's funny. I left my phone in the office, so I get to do it, and it doesn't matter. But I'll say, hey Google, call so-and-so. Or I'll say, hey, Google has gotten so smart. Google, you can ask the Google, and I'll just be driving down the road, and we'll be having a conversation, and someone will say something just so arbitrary and so random, and I'll just ask the Google whatever they like. We'll be talking about, hey, cucumbers, and I'll just be like, hey, Google, when's the best time to grow cucumbers? And the Google will respond, like right there in the car, just talk back to me. So one day, I was going to call Jay, and I said on the phone, I said, hey, Google, call Jay West. And the phone rang like it always does, because this is how I call Jay West, your pastor, all of the time. And I said, hey, Google, call Jay West. And the phone rings, and I hear on the other end of the line a female voice, which I thought was kind of odd. And she says, this is Jay West. How may I help you? And I said, ha, that's funny. Can I please speak with Jay? And she said, there's no one here by that name. To which I thought, okay, this isn't like Jay. He normally isn't going to play games like this. But maybe somebody, like I'm a youth pastor, and maybe one of my teenagers has come by the church or something, and he handed them the phone, and they answered it. And I say, who is this I'm talking to? And she says, hey, my name's Brenda. And I said, hey, Brenda, can I please speak with Jay? And she says, there's no one here by that name. And I said, but I called Jay West. She goes, that's right, you called Jay West. And I went, okay, then can I speak with Jay? She says, there's nobody here by that name. I said, Brenda, I'm having a hard time with this. I don't understand what you're saying. And she says, how can I help you, sir? And I can tell she's getting irritated, and I'm just confused. And I said, can I please speak with Jay West? She says, there's no one here by that name. I said, I thought I called Jay West. She says, you did. And I said, well, then can I speak with him? Sir, there's no one here by that name. What's your name again? Brenda. Brenda, can I please speak with Jay? Because I told the Google to call Jay West, and it called Jay West, and then you answered, and she goes, that's right. And I said, I don't understand. It feels like the Abbott and Costello routine, who's on first, and and we're going back and forth. And it takes me about 60 seconds until finally I say to Brenda, I'm from Alabama, and I'm just apparently being slow right now. I'm going to explain to you what happened, and you can help me understand what this conversation is and what we're doing right now. I said, so I told the Google, I said, Google called Jay West, to which the phone rang, and you picked up the phone and said, this is Jay West. Help me. She said, sir, you have called Jay West Bridal Boutique in New York City, New York, and my name is Brenda. And I went, Brenda, that explains so much. And then as the courteous, polite Alabamian I am, I decide I'm going to tell her what just happened. And I said, so Brenda, what I was doing is I have a brother-in-law, and his name is Jay West. And so when I said I would like for you to call Jay West, I do it all of the time. And then she's just gone. She hung up on me. But I think that a lot of times these were the conversations that Jesus was having. He was having these conversations where he would say one thing and someone would hear something else. Constantly back and forth with these conversations. There's one time that James and John come to Jesus and they say, Jesus, when you enter your kingdom, they say, when you enter your glory, could we sit on your right and your left? Now, glory to James and John mean one day we're going to fight. We're going to have a revolution. We're going to free Israel from slavery and captivity, and we're going to reign, and we believe that you're the Messiah, and the person that's going to lead us is going to be the king, and when you're the king, we want to sit on your right and your left when you sit on your throne. That's what James and John think glory means, but Jesus thinks glory means the cross. So James and John say, Jesus, when you enter your glory, they think the throne, Jesus thinks the cross. When you enter your glory, can we be on your right and your left? And Jesus says, you have no idea what you've just asked. And they said, well, we'd like to sit on your right and your left. And Jesus was, as a matter of fact, someone is going to be on my right and my left. Remember the cross. They're thinking glory, the throne. So he's constantly having these back and forth and these just confusing conversations with people. And so today I want to look at a confusing conversation that Jesus had with Martha and Mary on 4 days after their brother Lazarus had died. So I want to give you a little bit of backstory. Basically, this is about somewhere, we're not 100% sure, but this is somewhere between 2, 4, 5, 6 weeks before Jesus is going to die, before he's going to be crucified. And Jesus is staying outside of Jerusalem very purposefully because he knows that there is a conspiracy to arrest him and then to potentially kill him. He knows that he's going to die. He is telling his disciples over and over and over. Mark alone lists 3 stories in chapter 8, in chapter 9, and in chapter 10 where Jesus tells his disciples he's going to die. Peter even pulls Jesus off to the side one day and says, Jesus, you got to stop telling the other guys you're going to die. It's confusing them. It's making them sad. They don't know what. And that's when Jesus says, Peter, get behind me, Satan. So always these conversations, and Jesus is trying to say one thing, and people are hearing another. So Jesus is staying in Jerusalem because he knows if he goes into Jerusalem, he will probably be arrested. So he's staying, and it's not his time yet. Well, Mary and Martha send word to Jesus that Lazarus, their brother, is very sick. He's deathly sick. And he is in the city of Bethany, which is right next door to Jerusalem. And Jesus decides, I'm not going to go right now. Jesus waits 2 more days and then makes his trip to Bethany, where he will see that Lazarus has already been dead for 4 days. Which, if you do the math, John is very clear to tell us that Lazarus had died pretty much the moment that the group came to tell Jesus that he was sick. So that's where we pick up in our story in John chapter 11, verse 17. And on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been dead, or had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Martha is grieving. Her brother has died. And she is in the process, beginning the very process of grief, which is something that we don't do very well in America. We're not good at grieving because Americans have a deep aversion to pain. We will do whatever it takes to avoid pain at all costs. And in this culture, Lazarus' body, what would have happened is they would have prepared the body, they would have sat with the body, they would have put the body in the tomb, they would have sealed the tomb, they would have waited for about a year, they would have opened the tomb, gone in, taken the bones that had, the whole body would have decomposed, they would take the bones, put it in a box, bury Lazarus' bones, and then have the tomb ready for another person to be put in there to decompose. And this is a process, thousands of years old, this grieving process that many, many, many cultures have and many, many cultures participate in. And in America, we are no exception because we have to go through death and grief. We just do our very best to avoid it. So, several years ago, when I say several years ago, it's like 50 years ago, my kids will be like, I'll be like, the other day, and they'll say, when was this the other day? And I'll be like, it's 5 years ago. It's 5 years. But several years ago, there was some human psychological development studies done, and there was a lady who came up with this idea of the grieving process. And you've probably heard it before. It's called DABDA. Have y'all ever seen DABDA, the grieving process? Anybody know what I'm talking about? But it goes like this. I put it on the board for you. It's the process is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, a couple thoughts about this, and then I want to spend a little bit of time in the bargaining space. But basically, a couple thoughts. One is this is the process of grieving. So let me tell you what grief is. Grief is the experience that we have after we have experienced loss. It is the emotion that we have. It is the process that we go through when you and I experience loss. Whether we've lost someone that we love, whether we've lost an opportunity that we could have participated in, whether we've moved away from a city into a brand new city and we lost that city. Maybe we've graduated. Maybe your children have left home and you become an empty nester. The experience of loss. And this is the process we all go through. And I just want to tell you, this is something that I've learned the hard way. Grief always wins. You can cooperate with grief or you can fight against grief, but you are going to grieve. You can grieve well. You can grieve well and work out through your loss and try not to hurt the people around you and hurt yourselves, or you can grieve really unwell and hurt people around you and hurt yourself. But you are going to grieve loss. And so this process, it doesn't exactly follow this order all of the time. Sometimes you start with a different place. Sometimes you bounce around. It's called cycling. Sometimes you go through a few different places. And the other thought is the grieving process doesn't exactly end. It's not a perfect end. Take it from someone who was married for 20 years, and my wife passed away 4 years ago. There are things that happen in my life. I have grieved, and yet often loss will just present itself in the most random of ways. And so grief doesn't always just end, but the basic process. So you'll go through. So for instance, denial. You guys know denial. The basic idea of denial is it's when we say, this didn't happen. No, this didn't happen. I was so sad. Look, I grew up in the 90s. I'm a 90s. I get to say I grew up in the 80s and the 90s. Not everybody gets to say that. I do, which means I get two different types of rock and roll. I love rock and roll. I get 80s rock and roll, hair band, Poison and Def Leppard, like Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, like really awesome, silly, but fun, like 80s. But then I also get my emo side. I get grunge rock in the 90s where we had Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Like I get that. How many of you are 80s, 90s kids like me? We get rock and roll. Unless you lived through the 70s, it doesn't get better. Like 70s rock, that's pretty awesome too. You guys get Zeppelin. I mean, you guys get some rock and roll. But I get 80s and 90s rock and roll. And I was so sad this week when my favorite rock band, the Foo Fighters, the drummer died. Y'all saw this, right? And I felt it all day long, just saying it right now. It'll come up in my feed on the Google because the Google knows that once you look at something a few times, it's just going to keep coming up. So it'll come up on my feed, and it'll remind me that Taylor Hawkins died. I'm so sad. I'm sad how he died. I'm sad how old he died. But it's just, so denial is when we say no. So I heard the news. Somebody told me. I was sitting with some friends of mine at the beach on Sunday night, and they said, "Did you hear?" And I went, "What are you talking about? Did I hear what?" "Did you hear that the drummer for Foo Fighters died?" And I went, No, that couldn't have happened. Those of you that know rock and roll see the irony in the drummer, Nirvana and Foo Fighters. Like, you see the irony in this, and you go, "God, no, this didn't happen." So that's part of what denial is, but that's not really how you and I experience it. A lot of times the way you and I experience denial is when we deny permission to ourselves to be human, to be sad, to experience sadness. It's when we say, someone says to you, "I'm so sorry to hear about the loss of your fill in the blank," and you say, "It's okay." No, it's not okay. We're sad. And sadness is part of the human experience. I don't know if you saw Pixar's Inside Out, but it's one of the 5 core emotions. You are going to experience a lot of sadness in your life, and to deny yourself the ability to be sad is to deny yourself the ability to be human. So that's denial. Anger, you know what anger is. Anger is just when you're just upset. Anybody ever been angry before because you're in the grieving process? Like, just upset and angry and mad. But anger doesn't always just show up with fists and punches and screams. For me, when I was angry, anger showed up with isolating myself, not just from other people, but from God. Isolating, everybody's okay. I know y'all are on the ground going, "Oh my God, somebody fell out of the ceiling and died." Like what just happened up there? I have good news. I have bad news. We had to pause for a second while I was saying important things. I have good news. No one is dead. We don't have to grieve. That would be the most ironic thing, is if I'm talking about grief and loss and somebody just falls out of the ceiling and dies in the balcony. No one did. They're okay. They limped out, but they're okay. But for me, I would never say I was angry at God. I would never say that. But I went years of my life walking with Tiffany through tragedy and pain where I just was like, I'm just not going to read the Bible. I'm not going to pray. Years. And so that sometimes is anger. Bargaining is this idea where we begin to go through this if-then process. Now, this is where I wanted to camp for a second, because we see it here with Martha. She looks at Jesus and she says, "If you would have just been here sooner, then my brother would not have died. If you would have just done what I've seen you do to hundreds and hundreds of people. I saw you heal hundreds of people. I've seen you heal the blind man. I've seen you look at people that couldn't walk and raise them up, and legs grow and arms grow. I've seen you heal the deaf person. I've seen you heal the mute person. I've seen you heal. And if you would have just been here, then you could have healed my brother. And now because you didn't, I'm even questioning, do you even love us?" The first point, I want to make 3 points this morning, and the first point is this. It is Jesus doesn't fit the if-then. Jesus doesn't fit inside of the if-then. In your life, this if-then might sound something like this. If Jesus cared, then he would have healed my brother or my mom or my dad or my grandma. They wouldn't be suffering or they wouldn't have died. If you cared, then you would have done this. I was praying for you over the last several weeks, and this person came to mind, and it might only be one person in this room, but I feel like there's a person in this room, maybe two, that has this feeling right now that God is punishing someone that you love because of something that you did or something that you're not doing. And I want you to know that that's not how Jesus works. Jesus isn't an if-then. If you do this, then I will do this. Maybe you say it like this: if God was real, he would do something about all of the hurting in the world. Or you say, if I would have just prayed more, then God would have heard my request. Or maybe you say, if I would just fast more, then I could maybe hear God speak to me more clearly. Tiffany said to me one time, several years into her disease, she said, Jeremy, do you think that God isn't healing me because I'm not doing my devotions? She wasn't doing her devotions because she couldn't read anymore. The disease had stolen her ability to read, and she said, do you think God is punishing me and not healing me because I don't have the ability to do my devotions? Talk about feeling absolute sadness. That's if-then. Maybe you say, if I tithe, then God has to bless me. If I serve God's kingdom, then God has to take care of my family. This is the if-then, and Jesus doesn't fit the if-then. The if-then is, if I do X, then God has to do Y. In fact, the belief that if I do something, then God has to do something is actually witchcraft. It's the belief that I can stir up this cauldron of prayer or Bible reading or good deeds or things, and then God has to respond to what I do. And it's trying to control what God is supposed to be and is already doing. Martha says, if you would have been here, then my brother would not have died. We have to be so careful in the church to watch out for this transactional type relationship. Sometimes it goes by the idea of holding God to his word. Like we have to hold God to be God. Like we have to remind God to be God. If we're not careful, what happens is prayer becomes about managing outcomes. I only pray in order to get God to do what I want him to do. And that's not what prayer is at all. Prayer is about, one, being properly formed, and number two, partnering with God in his presence and activity in the world. That's what prayer is about. And when we use prayer to get God to do what we want him to do, we're participating in this idea of if-then. If I do this, then God has to do this. And Jesus doesn't fit the if-then. Continuing to read in verse 23, Jesus said to her, Martha, your brother will rise again. And Martha answered, I know he'll rise again in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection, and I'm the life. And the one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? This is where the conversation gets really good. Jesus is constantly, like I told you at the beginning, Jesus is having these conversations where he's saying one thing and someone's hearing another. That we have something that goes on inside of us called a cognitive bias, and that is we regularly hear what we already believe, and it's hard for us to hear things that we don't already believe. That's why we are so entrenched in what we hear, and constantly we have a hard time having good conversations with people because we don't have the ability to listen to each other very well. Our context is, I believe this, and you believe that, you're wrong and I'm right. And we don't listen very well. And so we get entrenched in this context, and we just have a hard time having good conversations. I was a youth pastor in Atmore 20 years ago, Atmore, Alabama. I want to be very clear, I was a youth pastor there. I was not in prison there. But I was in Atmore, Alabama, and I was also serving on the worship team sometimes. Sometimes I would play the piano. And we had like this piano pit, this orchestra pit, except it was high. So why we called it the pit, I don't know, but it was up and we were in the pit. So I played there in the orchestra pit with a drummer. His name was Brandon. With a bass player, his name was Jimmy. And me, the piano player. That was our orchestra. And Jimmy was, I love Jimmy. In fact, I re-looked him up this week on Facebook to make sure that he was still doing his thing, because Jimmy sang in a Southern gospel trio. It was him, his sister, and their friend Bobby. And they were fantastic. They sang the best Southern gospel that you have ever heard. The problem is, I told you earlier, I'm an 80s and 90s rocker, which means there is no good Southern gospel. However, as far as Southern gospel goes, they really sang good. If Elaine was in the room, she'd kill me, but she's not here. She's probably at some concert with Bill Gaither right now. So I hope she sees this. So Jimmy would sing, and they would bring the house down, and they would sing, The Anchor Holds, or some brilliant Southern gospel, in Christ Alone. I mean, it was always so fantastic. And I would try my very best to be like, yes, go God. It was hard, but I mean, I was there. I was like, man, but our church loved it. It was Atmore. And they would stand on there, would get so excited. So one day, we're sitting in the orchestra pit. I'm sitting playing the piano. But we have a track, so I'm just sitting watching, and Jimmy's beside me on the bass, and we had a guy in our church named Frankie who was singing a song. Frankie wasn't a great singer. What he was good at is picking a good song. That's what you have to do. If you can't sing very well, just pick a great song. And so he picked a great song. By the 2/3 of the way through the song, the whole church was standing on their feet and cheering and hooping and hollering. I don't know if you know what that means, but I don't either, but we say it in the Atmore, and so I've brought it up here to you. Here we go. We were hooping and hollering, and Jimmy is hooping in my ear. Woo! Yes! Praise God! Hallelujah! He's screaming at the top of his lungs. He is so into this song. And Frankie is singing fair, average at best, but the church is loving it, and we are worshiping with Frankie. And the song ends, and Jimmy's like, woo! Yes! Praise God! He looks at me and he high-fives me. I don't think you're supposed to do that in church, but whatever, he just goes, and I go, he's either going to hit me or I'm going to give him my hand. But one way or another, he's touching me. So I like, hit this. I prefer you hit this and not this. Will Smith style, I want to go this way, right here. So, too soon? The Google didn't think it was too soon. I had articles about it immediately following. But the Google's fast. So Jimmy high-fives me and he goes, woo! That is as good as it gets right there. I don't agree, but I was like, it was good for that. I mean, for that, it was good. For Atmore, Southern Gospel, Frankie, good. And he goes, I'm just going to tell you right now, that's what we're going to sing in heaven. And I go, yeah. Sure. Bad news, you will not have the last word in this story. So I say, I don't know why it stops me I don't do this anymore. I'm not a provoker. I'm not a provocateur at all, ever. But I just think to myself, wait a minute. Did I just hear him say, that's what we're going to sing in heaven? So I say to Jimmy, did I just hear you say, that's what we're going to sing in heaven? He goes, absolutely. What else would we sing? And I say, Jimmy, just to be clear, he's still hooping and hollering. Just to be clear, are you saying we're going to sing Southern gospel in heaven? Like we're going to cast our crowns at Jesus' feet and we're going to join with millions of angels that have been singing for eternity and they're just waiting for us to hit the jukebox and turn on Southern gospel? Like that's what we're doing up here? And he goes, well, yes! Nothing moves people like that. And I say, Jimmy, are you telling me we're going to force like Russians and Africans and Hispanics and Japanese to sing Southern gospel around the throne? And he goes, well, yeah. And I had nothing else to say. I don't know how to argue with that. I don't know how to argue with you. I don't know what to say. I just can't imagine that the angels are singing The Anchor Holds in heaven. I just don't see it. But that's what being stuck in a context does for us. We have a hard time seeing outside of our context. And Jesus says to Martha, your brother will rise again. And Martha says, because her context is, I believe that one day we're going to rise again. Martha says, yes, of course. I know that he's going to rise again at the resurrection. To which Jesus says, I am the resurrection. He's trying to change the way that you think about God. My second point is this. God is God because he is God, not because he acts like God. Okay, I want to break this down. God is God because he's God, not because he acts like God. And when I say he acts like God, what I want to tell you is one of the hardest things for me as a Christian for my entire I'm 45 years old. I've been a Christian as long as I can remember. I followed Jesus. One of the hardest things that has been for me to learn is that I often create an image of God and say, God, you have to act this way. You have to be this way. You have to respond this way. And when you don't act like this, then I get frustrated at God. Do you understand what I'm saying? We often create an image of God that says, God, you have to act like this, or else I am frustrated at you being God. And what I want to tell you is, walking through some of the most difficult years of my life, not some of, walking through the most difficult years of my life, I had to make a leap of faith. Faith is going to require every one of us to make a step beyond what is easy to believe. There is no way around it. I've talked to so many people who said, I just can't believe in a God who. Often I will say, tell me about this God you can't believe in, because it's possible that I might not believe in that God either. But sometimes someone will say, I just can't believe in a God who will do this. And what I want to tell you is, when I made my leap of faith, I decided I'm not going to take a leap of faith to believe that God will act the way that I think he should act. I'm going to believe in a God who has shown me what his character and his nature are through the person and work of Jesus Christ. God is God because he's God, not because he acts some way that you and I think that he should act. When you and I put faith in the action of God and in the activity of God and in the response of God, we are often going to be extremely frustrated when God doesn't act the way that we think that he should act. If I think that God is faithful, and I define faithfulness by God always giving me the things that I need and the things that I want, and never allowing me to go through deep pain, and when I go through deep pain, then apparently I don't think God's faithful anymore. And we're going to be frustrated by that God. And Jesus is trying to say something to Martha. He's trying to tell her, don't put your faith in what I can do, put your faith in who I am. And you and I are being invited not to follow a Jesus who raises us, who resurrects us. You and I are being invited to follow the resurrection. Jesus is the resurrection, and he is living in you and around you and through you and resurrecting you at every moment of your life. This is the same power that spoke creation into existence from nothing, the same power that holds the world together, the same power that continues to move and create and hold us. Is the power of resurrection. The same power that speaks life is the same power that resurrects life. And we are being resurrected. And the third and last thought is this. I want to read verse 28 first. After she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and he's asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now, Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in the house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. And when Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Jesus saw her weeping. This word weeping, by the way, we're going to see Jesus weep in a moment. It's a very different word. This word weeping is wailing. It's screaming. It's not the type of weeping you and I do anymore when we lose someone. This is a type of weeping that is consistent in so many cultures. But she's wailing. She's weeping. It says, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, same word, he was deeply moved in spirit and he was troubled. These are really interesting Greek words. One of them is this deeply moved idea is typically associated with a horse. When a horse is frustrated or angry or mad, and it goes, that idea. So that's the thought. And then troubled, the word there really is angry. Jesus was troubled and he was angry. He was deeply moved and he was angry. Well, what's he angry at? He's not angry at Mary and Martha. They're grieving. But he's angry that death thinks it gets the final word. He's angry that you and I have to fear death and disease and sadness, because that is not the world in which Jesus created. It's not the world that he first spoke into existence, and it is not the world that you and I will live in forever. And he's angry that this is what the people that he loves has to go through. And then we see one of the most beautiful scriptures. It says in 34, when Jesus saw her weeping and the Jews had come along with her weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and trouble. Where have you laid him, he asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And then it says Jesus wept. My last point is this. Jesus sees, he hears, he feels, he holds, and he joins us in our pain. I walked through deep sadness, deep pain. I walked through days that were so hard. By the way, there are days that are still hard. I have 3 kids that miss their mom, and that shows up in every way imaginable you can think of. I remember saying to Jesus, just do something. Just do something. Change this. Heal her. Fix this. Do something. And when it became obvious that it just wasn't going to do anything, I was like, well, what do I do? What do I relate to? What do I respond to? And it was this verse that God gave me. It was this idea that Jesus weeps with me, that Jesus steps into our pain, and he's with us, and he's close. There's not a moment that you and I can go through that Jesus isn't with us, sharing the burden of our pain. That's what Jesus weeps shows us. That's what the cross shows us. If you think that the cross is only for Jesus forgiving sins, you're missing so many dynamics of what the cross is about. The cross is also about Jesus allowing himself to become susceptible to death, just the way you and I are susceptible to death. Standing in solidarity with humanity to say, this is how you live, this is how you die, this is how you are raised again to life. And you and I are called to follow the Christ who has died, the Christ who has risen, and the Christ will come again. Today, before our team comes out and sings a song about Jesus being the firm foundation, I'm gonna have an altar call at the end of the service. But I've been praying for 2 very specific people this morning, and I want to tell you that because I want you to be thinking about it when we come back. The first one is this: the person that's in the room that God hasn't acted like you wanted him to. God isn't acting like you want him to. God isn't doing what you think he should do. God isn't acting like you think he should act. God isn't fixing things the way you think he should fix. You might have chosen to be angry at him. You might have chosen to cold shoulder him. Either way, you feel 1,000,000 miles away from God, and you wouldn't mind to be a little bit further away. Can I tell you, you're not alone. I'd like to give you 2 ways to respond. One, maybe you're in this room and I just want to give you permission. Maybe you're online this morning and I want to give you permission. You don't have to do a thing. God hasn't left you, not the real God. He's with you, weeping with you. And maybe you could open your heart this morning to a Jesus who weeps, not a Jesus who fixes everything. Maybe secondly, you want to give God another chance. You don't have to feel guilty about what you've said, about what you've done, about how you've responded. Don't feel guilty about any of that. Jesus doesn't deal in guilt. He deals in grace. And it might be time for you to make your way back to Jesus. The second person is this. I want to invite you into a relationship with an unpredictable, wild, adventurous, and transcendent God. You've been serving a tame, understandable, in-the-box kind of God. In The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, Lucy looks at Mr. Beaver, and she's asking about Aslan, who is this analogy of Jesus. And in the book, Aslan is a lion. And Lucy says to Mr. Beaver, if I'm going to meet him, is he safe? And Mr. Beaver says, who said anything about safe? No, he's not safe, but he's good. And I want to invite you to an adventure to experience all that Jesus has to offer. And it's not safe. It will not be all easy peasy. It will not be all good times. In fact, Jesus himself says to you, in this life, you will have troubles and trials, and then models it for you by going to the cross. You're not being invited into the adventure of clouds and blessings. You're being invited into the life of Jesus. And the life of Jesus is ups and downs and trials and valleys and mountains, and it's a beautiful mess. But I invite you into it this morning. So this morning, as we sing about the firm foundation, I'm going to come back out in a second and invite you to respond, whether you're online or you're in the room, in just a few moments. But will you stand with me this morning? Stand with me, and I want to say a prayer while the band kind of gets ready over you in preparation for what I think God is doing in you. Jesus, today, you are calling two people and so many more. But the two people that I've been praying for over the last several weeks, one is that person that just is very hurt by what we assume that you have done. Will you change the context of our understanding and let us see that you are with us in that moment? And God, that second person, inviting them into this adventurous, wild, untamed experience of this beautiful mess of following the life of Jesus, where we move and live with you and through you, and you use us to change the world. God, this is an invitation to follow you today. Amen.
Sing this with me. Christ is my firm foundation. Christ is my firm foundation. The rock on which I stand when everything around me is shaking. I've never been more glad that I put my faith in Jesus. He won't, yeah. testimony. Come on, we've all got a story. Come on, you know it. You know the truth behind this song. And you know he's never failed you. He's never gonna fail you. When rains came, wind blew, and my house was built. Oh, this is the reason I sing. I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it through. Rains came, winds blew, but my house was built on you, and I'm safe with you, and I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it. 'Cause I'm standing strong. 'Cause I'm standing strong. You're gonna make it through. 'Cause your house is built on Jesus. Oh, my house is built on.
That was such a good message.
Yeah, it was.
And that song at the end, wow. I mean, Jesus is our firm foundation, and I think that just hit everything that Pastor Jeremy talked about today. That was just like the nail on, how do you say that? It was the nail.
He hit the nail on the head.
There you go. Thank you.
Right.
Pastor Jeremy did such a great job talking about God, and in his comment that he said, the statement, God is not God because he acts like God.
Right.
That is just, I think for the last couple of years, especially for us personally, you and I, we've walked through some grief ourselves
Yes.
in our family, and the whole world has walked through a pandemic. And a lot of times I think that it makes us question God and say, God, why are you not acting like God should act?
Right.
I think that's so relatable to every single human being in the world right now. You know,
Right.
God is not God because he acts like we think he should act, but he is who he is, and we've got to trust him and put our hope in him. You know, he also said Jesus sees, Jesus feels, Jesus holds, and he joins us in our pain. Even though he may not follow through on things that we think God should do, he still walks with us every step of the way in our hurt and our pain. That's such a powerful reminder.
Yes, it is. And, you know, I think that comes from, and Pastor Jeremy related to this, it comes from the definition that we create
Yeah.
of who God is.
Yeah.
And when God doesn't act, as you said, the way we think you should act, God,
Yeah.
then you don't fit in my box. I'm upset with you and I'm distraught. And Jeremy even said this. He said, I want to speak to the person this morning that God didn't act the way you wanted to in a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so this morning, if that's you, our prayer team is standing by. Would you just say, I need prayer this morning? Or would you pray with me today? Or there's something that I need prayer with? Our prayer team would love to pray with you today about that. I know that I've personally been in that situation. You've been in that situation.
Yeah.
I think we all
We've
find
all walked
ourselves
through it.
in that place. We all
Yeah.
walk through, God, you're not who I thought you were.
Yeah.
But Jesus said, I am that I am.
Yes.
And this morning, would you just declare that over your life? He is that he is.
Yeah.
And he is the strength that you're looking for today. Or maybe today you are waiting on an invitation to follow Jesus. And so we want to invite you in today to follow Jesus, to make a decision for Christ this morning. Would you just drop that in the comments as well? That's me. I make a decision for Christ today. I make a decision for Christ. So this morning, thank you so much for joining us. Our prayer team's going to be online. If you're watching this later on in the week, our prayer team still is watching the comments. And so please drop a comment in our comment section on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll be glad to pray with you
Yes.
this morning.
So good. Such a good message this
It
morning.
was.
So thank you for joining us today. We love that you joined Kingwood Church Online. And if you need prayer, again, our prayer team is right there in the comments and in the chat, and they are ready to pray with you. So hope you have a great week, and we'll see
Yep.
you soon.